Welcome to another episode of the APL Show. Incredible guests the world over with incredible insights, experiences, and a lot of love or high vibe to share with all of us. Today, coming to us from Vegas, but originally from down under Australia, an amazing figure, Taoist instructor, and total talent in terms of healer, intuitive, and much more. I could spend 20 minutes singing his praises. SAN QING coming to us again from Vegas. He's coming back on. Great to see you again, San. And
Great to see you, my brother.
I'm stumbling over my words today.
You're looking sparkly as always. You are infectious because of that glow. It is. It's like even though you leave that rainbow at the end of your transmissions, whenever you connect with me on the interweb, that is not just a symbolic. I feel the rainbow when you're here. So
Well, it's like Skittles. Feel the rainbow, taste the rainbow. And I think the universe has got me sort of packaged up. Uh,
yeah.
57 years young, and I'm still just getting started for what I'm doing here. So, well, thank you very much, San. And I wanted to just kind of have you in the past, you've been on episode 29 of the APL Spotlight series, and we're going to have you back in the future in 2026. You had an incredible journey that you shared in that episode. Again, down under from power lifter to meditation techniques and many other techniques studied to actually going to China and doing intensive studies for years, which you've turned around and been able to help others. But you've also been a guide or helper to corporate America, people who want to know what's up, what's down. And you've been in demand for some time now and practicing very efficiently for a long time. Can you give us a quick overview of what you do for others if someone wanted to train with you or online engage you?
Sure, sure. I mean, and first of all, it starts with a basic overhaul of that person and where they're at in their own evolution, in their own self-realization. And it always starts with a little bit of inquiry for themselves that ends and the origins are from the heart. So I normally start with a little bit of contemplation, direct them in the way of the infectious hopium that comes out of that. And then we start building on the belief system, and then we go into the Taoist metaphysics. So this is where the, you put it, the falcon and the falconer meet as the now moment for, and I don't know why, but I love that movie, The Old Wall Street, but that's another story altogether. When you start to realize what's possible, what's the potential, we refer to it within Taoism as bringing immortality, crystallizing it into this material state. And so you start to really get into the fundamentals, and using Taoist metaphysics, you start to understand what is the effect of this oscillating experience that we're having, right? So for a Taoist, it starts with the primordial mother, which would be more over understanding the dielectric effect of magnetism. That is the void. The void is the primordial mother. That's the animation to the consciousness. The consciousness is the animation to the Shen. We refer to that as the spirit. The spirit is the animation to the energy, and the energy is the animation to the body. And within the body, you have the effects of the separation of mind, body, spirit. Moreover, the body would be the physical body, the energetic body, and so forth and so on. So when you look at the foundation of it, the most lowest level, entry level, is the physical. When that transmutes, you might want to call a ghostbuster or maybe you, my friend, to help alleviate what is becoming more problematic, and it starts to show itself through the flesh as a resistance, as some type of like emanated resistance to your own remembrance. And so it gets contorted by that psychotic prison that you call your intellect. And so the intellect will overplay things and put you in circumstances where you believe your body's response to these experiences are real, and they're interplayed within programming that makes it almost impossible for you to avoid the inevitable. And the way you start with that is you walk up to a door frame, you put your hand in the door and you close it. And then you realize that everything else was just a dream, and that the now moment is all you have, and not be perplexed by this incessant, empty, bankrupt return, like a rat in a wheel. That is the very construct of the human condition. So once that gets out of the way, which only takes a few moments to realize that now is all we have, it sounds like a hallmark throwaway, then we start getting into the get down where the infrastructure of burning in the energy architecture is part of the alchemical process. That's where it gets really exciting, because your potential is unlimited. And that's when we use ancient techniques of incantations, hand seals, Taoist magic to truly envelop that and have that recognized by the practitioner, from the seeker to the knower, through these ancient techniques that consist of all things within this material state, and you encapsulate the potential that is unlimited. So the pulse, as the primordial mother, is the animation to everything. When you experience your humanness, this is a wave of information that is transitory, impermanent, and it collapses on itself. So you have this continual pulse. If everyone was to take a moment right now as we're talking and say, hey, okay, well, the autonomic nervous system, the autonomous behavior of your very Tao-given right within the flesh of this system that seems superhuman, high-tech, that can basically create anything at will, you are not participating in the pumping of your blood. You're not participating in you waking or sleeping, or furthermore, you're not participating in whether there is something that is going on that is out of your purview in the sense of your intellect. So right here, we have now created evidence that you are in possession of this potency already. And so when you have this self-realization, you go, holy moly, I guess he's right. I mean, I can't dispute it. I mean, I don't sit here and go, heart, can you pump a little bit more blood? Or perhaps maybe I'm going to focus my attention. What's most common is driving a car, right? The fastest way to feed back into, collapse into that pulse is just the ability to blend, which you do when you're doing something as autonomous as driving a car. Now, we can sort of bring it down to the semantics of it takes a certain amount of hours to acquire this conditioning. But quite frankly, that's just your training wheels for you to start digesting what the truth is in relation to what your potential is, what you're capable of. So this evidence in of itself, if someone didn't have any idea of Taoism or metaphysics or anything of that nature, just the realization that they are already possessing this magical pulse that we speak of, which we refer to as a primordial mother, that is perfection. And it shows itself because your participation is not required. You don't ever have to contemplate or focus on or introspective, intellectualize any of this, because it's happening regardless, which means that you do not have to do a single thing. And so now it's like, okay, well, how do I obtain this very now moment? Well, we can play little games that people like to play where we play, it's like a pin the tail on the donkey type of thing. And we start with something simplistic, like just imagine you have no past or future. Holy crap. That in of itself, you can feel the expansion of your own potency. You can feel that liberated energy that was being contorted or misdirected or distorted from the lens of the personality that would make you restrictive. But just liberating yourself at this now moment makes you feel whole. You're like, holy moly, he didn't do anything. I didn't do anything. I just took a breath. And that's the potency of what we call the primordial breath, the embryonic breath, which is really where we come from. Through the womb of creation, that spark of divinity, you transform like a metamorphosis, like a butterfly. From the water, you return to the material. From the water, you create from the material. From the water, you are all knowing, because this is the emanation and realization of pure insight, pure intuitive state and awareness, where you are accessing all things at once. You are all things and nothing at once. This contracting and expanding experience is this now moment. The rippling effects of me moving in the material, because my dear brother here has already set this sacred space up, so we're swimming in this stuff. So I'm just playing with it like, kids with Play-Doh. We have this rippling effect. And as I move my hands, you feel the visceral, kinesthetic, somatic response within your flesh, because this is truth. This is more commonly, if you want to water it down from a physicist's perspective, we're talking about a biofield. This is the emanation of the true source of who you are, and it starts right here. The magnetism is infinitely more powerful than the very limited, very short-lived transitory effects of the impermanence of electric potential. And so when that firework goes off, it has a wave, just like a firework, and then it diminishes and it collapses and goes back to itself. This is where you don't get distracted. This is where the Sherlock to the Watson is realized with these crumbs. You create potential. From human condition to human beingness is the labyrinth, where you dismiss the incessant nonsense, the futile realization of this mind that you believe is separate, and furthermore gives you insight when it will completely continue, repeat itself, and you get nothing. It's just a rinse, wash, repeat, same process. So there's nothing more potent than when you get down with the magical effects of energy potential. And that's why alchemy is so potent, because now you have access. Now you return back to that beautiful primordial pulse. And so the undulation of the flame is now a possibility. It's no longer something you reach for and it's elusive and it moves and it changes. You are now embodying that, and that flame element returns you to the spirit. The potency of that spirit is emanated through that. The charge you and I are receiving from this union right now, my friend, is a hey, amen, hallelujah. You're experiencing this potency. I'm experiencing this potency because we're unified. This is the pulse we speak of. Now, what is possible, Jifu? I always speak in the third person. It seems I picked it up from Bruce Lipton. He loves doing that. Or furthermore, one of the merry men of metaphysics these days, we always speak in the third person because you ask the questions that you already know the answer to, and it helps the seeker digest what it is we're speaking of, because there's so many bells and whistles going off and fireworks going off as we're having this conversation, because it's visceral, it's kinesthetic, it's somatic. You are experiencing something. We're not just having a casual conversation. My brother here entered in with all his incredible gifts and guides that just made this like a spiritual soup that I am just taking complete advantage of. I'm as high as AF. And that's the whole purpose of it, is to have that recognized state that, you will make sense of your own potency. And furthermore, many people will return to this imperium, this dominion, this maestro, to this very now moment, which will in effect show you this evidence. So as we cultivate, we get down to the body, and between the body and the energy, these animative processes, you have all this potential. So now we start to turn it into processes. So as you evoke the spark of energy, which is limited return, you, through that lens of Tao, you have the potential to take that energy and transmute it into the pulse. This is the excitement of the potential of the alchemist. And so when that happens, there's an infrastructure. The most valuable commodity that you have as an experiencer, as an explorer, is your attention. That is the most potent currency. And so now we're working in that currency. How, Jifu, do we take the currency of energy potential that is a diminished firework that folds back in on itself and turn it into a permanence? Well, just so happens you're in the right place, my friends. And so when you create, when you create from this material using the pulse, then you create what we call permanence. You detach and attach as all things. This means you collect $200, and you move into a state where every thought, every action, every beingness is now basically the effects, the oscillating emanation of this pulse. And it doesn't matter what you may believe you're commandeered by your intention, it will form itself into serendipitous, synchronistic moments, which is what we refer to as wu wei. So now you're starting to craft and master your alchemy. And that alchemy will always consist of the same potential. It is energy created from your attention intention. All it is you're forming a distortion that can be turned back into perfection. So that distortion has vibration, frequency, and resonance. And if met with your cultivational practices, oh, yes, it will be yours. Oh, yes, it will. So this mastery through the body will liberate you and ultimately give you this imperium over this state as a permanence. So that means your every action, your every thought, your every feeling, your every desire will be met with that perfection manifest we refer to. Does that make sense? Did I answer that? Or maybe I should have shut up there. I don't know.
Where you put your focus is where you put your focus. How you spend your energy is how you spend your energy. I'm going to do a series of little questions, just little ones. And then maybe we do a little experiencing. But how many years were you in China studying? Was it 8? Was it 10?
Yeah, it was about 5.
5.
So, yeah.
And can you describe in the proper terminology, you did a lot of progressive. Was it the 136th?
126th.
126th, but I need the rest of the lingo because I can't remember.
Lineage, 126th lineage. So, yeah, I'll go ahead. You were going to ask a question.
So everyone's got access to this energy. It's within you. It's around you. Like good old Yoda says, are we alone in the universe? Am I going to make you absolutely start coughing on that one? Absolutely not, right?
But are we alone in the universe?
Yeah, mankind. Are there other loving beings around us, within us?
Well,
how do you just?
I mean, the evidence of life forces everywhere. That pulse will transmute into whatever you desire. Whatever is drawing your attention, you will create a relationship with that. So that may be ETs, they may be spirits, it may be your affinity for the bosom and the blossoming of Mother Earth in of itself, Gaia, however you want to perceive it. This will show this animation.
Did you have an experience that you can share, whether it was in Vegas, down under, Sri Lanka, China, something that at the time it stayed with you, it still stays with you, but now you don't reflect on it necessarily daily? What was in an intense moment with the universe where some sort of loving being had an interaction with you? Was it dream time? Was it waking? Was it walking down that road?
A loving being or just an entity?
How about a positive loving being?
Positive loving being. Okay. Yeah. So I can't give you a timestamp, but let's just take you to circa San Francisco, Chinatown, I don't know, let's just say 2000-ish. And I'm entering into an antique store that right on the fringe of Chinatown and the rest of San Francisco, you enter a portal that seems sort of like nothing you've ever experienced. You're just going back in time. But right on the fringe of that, there was an antique store that was run by a bunch of what we would call very recognized old gentlemen, Italian types. It was very obscure to have this elaborate antique store in Chinatown. We're talking like you walk through the door and the glasses, the floor is all, laden with like imported marble from Italy and all this kind of stuff, and all these elaborate gaudy like antiques, whether they're food dogs or bronze lions or these candelabras that are just like crazy. You're just mesmerized. You think you're in the Liberace's like lounge room. It's just so much glitz. And I was like, let me go in there. My teacher at the time, which is still my teacher, let's just say, go in there and check out what there's more potential there. I said, okay, well, I walked in there and it's like, hey, well, hey, how can I help you? And I'm like, okay, this is strange. This is Chinatown, and it just seems obscure. It just seems off center. And I'm just always looking for something more ancient Chinese based stuff. He goes, oh, I got some food dogs here that were like nice brass food dogs. And then he said, actually, I know what you want. I got something in the back. I'm like, oh, what a coincidence. Please show me. So he escorted me to the back of the store, all these glass staircase. It looks like you're in the middle of like some high-rise penthouse, maybe even, Trump's sort of penthouse in the Trump Tower. It was so gaudy. It was like gold everywhere. Everything was like laden with gold and all these jewels and marbles and everything. And so we walk up the stairs and he literally goes, keep coming with me. And I'm like, okay, what's the worst thing? I entered, my wife's sitting in the foyer. There's no way. I mean, I'm not going to be consumed or killed at will. I'm curious. I want to see what this guy has to offer. And he'd walk through this door that was kind of like a press-on door. It opened up, and it literally took you into what seemed like a warehouse. It was a whole nother building that from the outside didn't seem like it existed. Like you look at the outside of the structure of the building, it would seem that wouldn't be possible. But we literally went into another building and then into another building. And it was literally like, this, it was like you found the treasure to Indiana Jones's greatest movie. And I'm just, unbelievable. I'm looking around going, it's just one thing after another, one thing after, elaborate, paintings and jewels and just stuff that just seems so insane. And then he'd bring me to say, oh, you like this. And this is like a particular antique that's more, Asian based, even though he's in Chinatown, you'd assume that was all the thing. So what happened at that point, when I entered the first building, there was like two very clear, and I just call them entity spirits that presented themselves. And they were both basically from my lineage. They were protectors. One was Gong, the other one was We Too. And they had a very clear presence. I see them as I see you. They enveloped the space. I felt extremely calm, very grounded. I'm having this experience, and there's nothing that I need to be wasting my incessant mind on as, well, what's going to happen? Is there this is kind of scary. I'm blind faith following this guy. Well, I never really operate that way. I always consult with my teachers before this happens, but their presence is normally within my own sacred space or temple. So they came in. Then furthermore, two ancient teachers that were, they looked similar to Latsu, but they were not. They were very old, sort of age decrepit, sort of like sages. And one had no hair and the other one had lots of hair and a very long beard, but it was in disarray. It was all matted. It looked like, dude, you need a day at the spa or something like that. And so these two presented themselves, and he's having this conversation with me, and you could tell he was a devout Catholic. So he was walking through this place with a certain level of protection. But I'm not, of course, having this conversation with him as these two spirits are like, yeah, you need to come over here. And what happened was the items that he showed me, I immediately stopped, because these were items that were clearly taken from a temple in an inappropriate way. And the two spirits were explaining to me that this was taken with force that ended with the death of several practitioners, and part of the congregation of their temple originated in China, but ended up in his hands. So I was like, oh, well, this is kind of exciting. Then I'm getting the rundown from these two entities. And I'm like, well, thank you very much. And I'm looking around, and honestly, it had a backdrop very reminiscent of Big Trouble in Little China. Like, you are like in this gold-laden sort of like space. And I assume that if I had to look at the facade of the building, you would not assume there was 2 buildings built into that building. So there's 3 buildings in. It was almost like you walked into this portal that made it disappear in time, because it just didn't make any sense to me. It's like, from the outside, out in the street, these do not exist. Like, where are these coming from? So I built a relationship with the guy in the sense that it was a positive experience. I thanked him for sharing sharing what he had and his antiques. And I said, I'll think about it. And of course, I retreated and moved out of the space. The 2 spirits were like, we're here for a reason, and you understand this. And my two guardians, my protectors, Wei-Tu and Gong, were very, they weren't standoffish, because we're all meeting in the same place. We all had the same desire, which was to amplify this knowing of ancient culture and having it being met with the curiosity of new generations. That's what we do. That's what we love. And so it was a fascinating experience. And it ended with a handshake, and I really appreciate you taking the time. But I guarantee you, he was going, why did I do that with this guy? What compelled me to take him to my secret stash in the building behind the building behind the building? And it's just like, it's sort of like deep, Chinatown is so mysterious. People don't understand it. I mean, Chinatown in of itself, was basically built on top, or San Francisco was built on top of an exhumed graveyard. And people don't really understand that. So there's a lot of mystery and a lot of magical moments that are in depth, and you have these exchanges with all these spirits, because there's so many of them that are earthbound through these experiences over the length of San Francisco. I think San Francisco was like built in the 1800s or the 1700s, whatever it was. There's so much deep, enriched history to that. And so that was an event that ended with, ultimately, I had a union with Quan Yin. She entered after that and just enveloped me with this got a big hug, right? Enveloping my heart, activating oxytocin and nitric oxide. And I was just so joyful and blissful. And, these are the types of events that take place for people that are in this space of awareness, like you and I, on a daily basis. This is what we experience. These are the events, because you have to just leave yourself open to this contemplation, leave yourself open to the potential of what is possible, and you will invite it into your life. You will invite it into your reality. And furthermore, it will start to show itself as a permanent programming that you experience. And so now you have to develop that relationship. And so this is where I always return back to the Taoist alchemy, because the Taoist alchemy is most important. That's what's very, very important, is how do you obtain this skill? How do you obtain this ability? And I'm pretty sure you would confess this with the audience, that there's still a level of commitment that you make to your own lineage, your own teachers, your own wisdom that emanates through you, not at you. This is the very key element that people need to understand. This is happening through you, not to you. And when you realize that you are that filter, that lens that transmutes it into possibility here, it gets really exciting, because everything has a message, everything has an opportunity. And so the more you solidify your lens being your ability, your clear vision, you are able to really connect with these spirits, because they're always around you. They're always there, and have a very tangible relationship. Just like, Michael's getting high as AF right now, just listening and experiencing the energies that I'm talking about in a past experience, but he's able to tap into that. He's able to embody that and experience it right now, which is so, it's always so exciting. It's like the first time I ever saw your face. And that's really where you get the goosebumps, you get the charge, you get the expansion, the oscillation. And that's what puts you off to the races. That's what makes you continue to devote yourself to that. We refer to it as the selfishness to the selflessness requires the sacrifice. And that's that sacrifice. Well, I don't want to lose anything, Jifu. The sacrifice is your very limited personality. Once you liberate that and realize that it's for you to experience, but not for you to live by. It's not a truth. It's a diluted state that can be used as an experience. Remember, heads up to everyone. We are all immortals that are eternal, having a human being experience. And when you start to get the infrastructure going, then it becomes exciting. Then it becomes even more childlike. And then you get to live a life like Michael, where everything is just dancing with the possibility and the divinity, and rubbing shoulders with all these incredible spirits and beings and energy potential that just makes you return to the childlike nature that is really the seed of who you are.
Ooh, I'm going to do a quote real quick that you just touched on, and then a picture of a statue of Quan Yin. And we'll see what Quan Yin wants to relay. You don't need a photo, but here's the quote. It's from India. Not sure the year, but Siddha Katrapa. I think I was just moved to New York City for the second time, 1993, and didn't leave there until 2010. But I unofficially did not keep a diary, but somehow kept a diary and put about a dozen quotes in that stuck with me for about 16 years. This has the word expression non-duality in it. So it took me 16 years to get a reasonable definition of non-duality. That's how slow I am. Whatever the yogin sees is his instruction, in realization that all he sees is unborn. That is the most excellent guru. Innocence is the way to realize non-duality, for here the effects of virtue and vice are one. You like that quote?
Who wouldn't like that quote? It's a emerging, what we refer to the quickening, the illumination, and revealing the pulse to everything.
And then Quan Yin, and I have one of those classic statues from around the world of her. If you don't mind either catching an expression, a reminder, an insight from her, a smell, a vibe, or colors or light around you, some form of interaction. What does she have for all of us? What are you getting right now? And obviously, you're already plugged into her full on.
Yeah. I mean, the very spoken word that she always repeats is know thyself, love thyself, be thyself through the nectar of what you would consider an offering, a flower, a landscape, something maternal that incites a level of awareness that makes you just love, and love forever, as it is an internal Tao given right. That when you return to yourself, it doesn't require anything but allowing this experience right now.
Nice. I'll light some sage here in Texas to Nevada. And we were doing this before the show. We were playing around before the show.
Yeah.
I think we referenced that at some point at the beginning. Here's the sage. People at home, if you haven't done this, you can catch the sage smell. It doesn't matter if it's 10 years from now and you're in Christchurch or Tokyo or Shanghai. Just let the universe step in and be the bridge. Or as San would say, you're already the bridge. Just out of your head into your heart and allow. No try Yoda. But as Archangel Gabriel said, always try. So it ain't about the words. And even if your schnoggin is broken, you can still catch the smell. Your heart, the universe knows how to get around a broken schnoggin. Okay, here's the sage. And you can ask for something extra, flowers, incense, something that you're not burning already there. What are you getting in Vegas right now, in the Nevada area?
It's just a very clear interception of one of my teachers, Feng Bo, who's the god of wind. And he emanates and controls the directions through his relationship with the four heavenly kings, from the south to the north, the east and the west. You feel that element of wind and metal. The two merge and they show themselves as this bulletproof ability to ward anything that is low frequential or negative in their nature. It just disseminates to nothing.
And I'll do one last interactive item. I'm going to put up a black cardboard background. I think we've done this before, but I'll put my fingers up. You get a dad joke, most importantly, and it won't be the one that I gave just before the show. Where do rainbows go when they're bad? Prism, but it's a light sentence. I'll get a fresh joke out. I'll put my fingers up. You'll see whatever light is showing between my fingers, but if you don't mind, after that, letting the universe step in, or Lao Tzu, Quan Yin, and adding extra to it. And I'll go faster and wider. You might get a geometric shape. Two people got phoenixes. You can get a running.
Are you looking for a little interaction with Lao Tzu today?
Sure. And here's the dad joke, though. Where in a hospital is the worst place to play hide and seek? Where? In the ICU. And just see a little filament of light or a lot of filament of light. What are you getting between my fingers for any colors? Clear?
It's a circular electric charge, and it keeps pulsing and shorting, and it's pretty.
And if you can let the galactic crew step in, universal crew, Lao Tzu, Lao Tse, Quan Yin, Buddha, angels, what are you getting now for extra flow?
Extra flow?
Yeah. Are you getting anything extra or new or different?
Just a permanent expansive state that cannot be distorted. It cannot be destructed. It's just a pulse. It's now.
Brilliant. Now, here was that question I got. I kind of went quiet. I'm taking a shower. It was an opportunity. I don't usually dip in ahead of time. I like to just record these things. And so I got the following three-part question, which I already mentioned it to you as a courtesy before the show, and I'll try to repeat it. Why do so many, one miracle is not enough? So they experience something and then back to, I guess, up here. The second part of the question is, why for so many are they not even letting go in the first place to allow for a miracle? And the third part of the question is, how do you define a miracle? Are we just talking about love here? What are we talking about for all three of those? And San, I know you're going to be able to parse this in a parsec and just slice and dice it in your own way. And you probably already have the answer. Can you take this and run with it?
Do a revision of the question again. There was three parts.
Sure. For some, they get a miracle, and yet a week later, a day later, an hour later, it's gone. In one ear, out the other, in the experience, out the experience, and it's not enough. For others, it's not, they can't even allow for it in the first place. And then what are we talking about? What is this miracle?
Right. Well, miracle is the return, the misalignment to the alignment. And so that's the symbiosis, the dance, the tango that you have continuously with this energy potential. Yin and yang is the evidence of what is potential, but it's transitory, it's impermanence, and it will fall back into itself. If you allow the very present moment, you will return to that magnetism, which is the animation of all things. When you experience remembrance, that's when the magnificent realignment of true potential comes in, and it says, hello, I see you because you are me. And from that, you return to that center point where your heart becomes engorged and filled with blood. That is a true death rattle of what was limited and now what potential is possible, because that's when you remember, and no longer are you warding off the very limited state of victimhood and emotionally deficient charges like depression and anxiety, fear. These cannot hold a candle to your magnetic truth. And that will dispel and disperse all that noise. And so when people are waiting, sitting on the side of the bay, anyway, when you are putting yourself in that place of potential observer, but also waiting, give me a sign, Tao, give me a sign, God, give me a sign, universe. It's more like God, Tao, Buddha has never left your side, your cheerleaders to the end of eternity, yet you've decided to misdirect or not listen to the very evidence that gives you the clear path. So you start getting deep within the mind and you start creating stories, and it's all part of the human condition. And from that, you start to separate. And so the more signs you get, the more you resist. And this is what we call this very inverted effect of this energy, right? So within any seeker's path, they get this self-realization. I'm a psychic, I'm a medium, I'm a channel. I see dead people, I hear dead people, I have visions, I have premonitions, I can help people heal, all this kind of good stuff, all magical epiphanies of self-realization. But they're only transitory in this part where people would scream for God, why are you not giving me this miracle? It seems like it's never coming, is because they invert the energy, because you have this needle that moves between yin and yang and creates this material that you're experiencing, that you're observing. And what happens is when someone realizes that they have access to the pulse, the intuitive state, they embody it, but they absorb it. So they take it into the physical body. And so you'll find most healers, clairvoyants, channelers, intuitives, medical intuitives, whatever you want to call yourself, they have corrupted themselves to a point where they're getting the superpower of the insight, but because they're not returning to the center point, which is a balance of these two energies, the inverted effect, it starts to corrupt and corrode the flesh. Because, I have all these insights, but it starts to show itself with the mortality and the impermanence of the physical body. And it will come in the form of excessive extremes, which will show itself either in lack of your body's ability to hold any form of attention. That means that the cell itself is being corrupted, it's being corroded, it's being dissolved. This is what we call you're taking advantage and consuming the fringe benefits of your personality, which is all external. The internal is here. This is the center point. Everything else will constantly morph itself in the symbiosis between yin and yang. It's never in the center point. It's always one extreme or the other. So most healers will come to this realization to their dismay. They will come to this, I can only channel so much, I kind of get exhausted, or I can't be around certain types of people because they're, if I do 5 clients a week, that's way too much. I have to prep for 3 hours before I get to this experience and blah, 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 blah. This is not recognized their true potency, their true knowing that doesn't require any insight whatsoever, which we call, and we know this as the pulse. This is the animation of all things. We all have it. We all possess it. We all own it. But the very trickery, some people call it the jinn, with Tico, we just call it, basically low frequential energies within Taoism. But, Bob Monroe might be as fond to say it's called the loosh. So this is a very, very constructed energy that is a community-based thing that starts to feed on the incessant need for someone to seek for more, using their intelligence, using their mind, using the intuitive, and the intellect, and you start consuming yourself like an autoimmune disease. And so you consume more on the flesh. And so the more inverted you get, the more psychic you get, the more intuitive you get, the more you have this ability. If you're not meeting it with the balance, we within Taoism have cycles of like 60 years. And so general cycle right now for anyone living on planet Earth, if you hit a 60-year cycle, you enter the next 60 and you'll enter the next 60. Anyone that's alive right now can live consciously up to 180 years. No problem whatsoever. But once you meet that 60-year cycle, it must be with that harmonious balance. And if not met with that, you start to see the denigrated effects of this through the body. So you're about to hit the 60-year cycle. Most people have more evidence once they hit their 40s. Holy crap, the hubcaps are coming off the wheels. Things are starting to show themselves because of decisions I made through the emotions, through the mental state, which reflect on the physical. So the more and more you start to return to that potency, that pulse, which you look like Benjamin Button, so you're doing something right. There is evidence of that unified state where you can see the vitality in the seeker, in the practitioner, in the healer. Through that, this person offers wisdom teaching. This person offers opportunity, and I'm going to move more towards whatever they're speaking on, whatever they're teaching, because that will give me more insight for my own self-realization.
3 things for you. And then I'm going to try to shift it, though, from the third thing to another one of your instructors. Remember to remember, if you can remember, when you remember, to remember. I thought that was original, and it's not. A book fell off a shelf at a bookstore. It was one of the many multitudes of a Tibetan Book of Dying book. Songyal Rinpoche had written the 1.5-page foreword and ended it with, so he was endorsing someone else's book. He ended it with, remember to remember. I've been teaching my students that for 35 years. And I was like, oy vey, only thing that I thought was original that I've ever uttered is not original. Second, Dr. Strange is what popped up when you were describing all that. And third, you had an instructor that wasn't the best instructor at one point, but you got everything from them you could. And you described that instructor, a male, very well in episode 29 of the APL Spotlight series from December 24th, Christmas Eve, 23rd. 2024. People can look that up. I'll have the link in the video details. But I want you to shift, if you could, to that very first moment. I think it was a classified ad. As you said, your kids would not know what a newspaper was or a classified ad. You circled it. You were gone. You were in a seedy side of towns, one of those cities in Australia. You'll tell us which. You walked in, and it was a concrete, not bunker, but recreation center, I believe, right. With a lot of hubbub going on, and the woman there immediately transformed the moment for you. Can you describe that? That's a very powerful experience that I'm sure still is with you today.
Yeah. I mean, I ended up in a seedy neighborhood. I was answering an ad in the classifieds. I was looking for answers. I needed to find out more about this thing called meditation. It was an incessant, like, knocking on the door. There was a very clear messaging in my mind that I needed to start practicing this technique, whatever it was. And back in those days, there was no real information or understanding of it. It was like Hare Krishnas, hippies with hairy armpits that eat alfalfa sprouts. There was no real definitive place to go and get insight if you're curious. Now, today, you can go the internet, get 1,000 different things, 1,000 opportunities, but this was not that moment in time. At the moment in time that I was in, there was no evidence. So I found this meditation class. I was an overgrown gorilla at that time, very, 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 very stout, very muscular, and would proceed in a equivalent to an eclipse when it came to stature. And so when I entered this space, I was a beggar just like everyone else, and I walked through the door, and that was after leaving my car and walking into this space, thinking, this is a bad neighborhood. I mean, I'm hearing screaming, dogs barking, what seemed like, guns going off, but who knows what it was. It was not good. It was just like that took my attention and focus. I couldn't possibly do anything else with it. And so my mind is going on about, well, when I'm done with this, how do I get to my car? What am I going to do to get back? And so I got inside, and people were posturing themselves, getting in position. There's about half a dozen people in a half circle. And it just had so happened I had this spot right in the back of it where I could just sit down like an overgrown gorilla scratching his ass in complete pain, because I hadn't met that measure of excellence with that supple. Even though it was within me, I had to activate that nourishing effect of the water element. So I was extremely rigid. I was compressed. I was compact with all this muscle. I didn't have the fluidity. Little did I know I didn't have it in the body. I had it here. I had it here all the time. So I'm sort of attempting to replicate this thing. I'm looking around. What I did at that point, I didn't know what a lotus, but they're sitting with their feet like this. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what this is. Let me try it.
Who was she? Who was she?
It was like she claimed to be a grandmaster. It was just like an avatar at the time that would give me insight. And I was just completely blown away. So when I'm sitting down attempting to crouch over, and I'm forcing my legs to assume this kind of position, and I was huddled over like this, and everyone else is like, getting in position, and she's standing there, and with me huddled over, she stands up to here, like she straight up stands up. She walked up to me and gave me a little very welcoming, loving smile, and walked around the room, and then sort of put her position back in that center of the room. And I'm thinking, oh man, there's just no way I'm going to be able to do this. This is just not going to happen. Anyway, so all this noise in the background, I'm all excited about just leaving the place alive. That's really what I was focused on. I was more concerned about that. And people would be like, but your whole persona would not lead me to believe you need to be afraid of anything. Well, absolutely. I'm a chocolate covered koala bear with a caramel center. I mean, I was a very, very nurtured yin maternal energy that I would show through. Even though I had the persona of stoic muscularity and yang, I used the yin throughout my whole existence, throughout my childhood, my teenage years. This is what I knew because I was surrounded by mother-like figures, maternal, all these women that were in a point in history attempting to liberate themselves from that moment in time where, there was not equality. There was absolutely not equality in human history that even goes back 50 or 60 years. In the Western culture, Australia, America, women were not met with this equality. There was still a huge, overwhelming amount of bleeding misogyny that would really just dismiss women as concubines, and they need to only be spoken to if their notion, but be very quiet and fall back into the shadows of the room. So this was a revolution that I was born into, and I was always around this incredible magnetic feminine energy, and it really activated me as to who I really am. So even though I was a chocolate covered koala bear with a caramel center, that was my biggest concern. And so when this woman stood back and took her position and said, with all this going on, and then she goes, now listen to my voice. And I'm thinking, in my mind, I'm looking right at her going, I'm listening, but I can't focus. There's no way this is going to happen. And she literally went, and everything will fall away. And I swear to God, Michael, I experienced the capturing of silence for what seemed like an eternity, but it was about 15, 20 minutes. And I was just looking at her with sources, and it was like this. And there was nothing. I'm literally looking for, okay, where's the joke? Who turned the soundtrack off? And she was just in that teacher mode of just walking around the room, and she'd look at me and she'd give me a smile, and like not going, you need to focus like this and get to this position. I was just in that present moment, and it was a superpower that I had access, that I had been guided to throughout my whole childhood, and it was that present moment. So that was where the first time I ever experienced meditation, and it literally became me. It basically it lured me into everything that I now am completely immersed in. But that first experience was the catalyst.
Do you have a parallel example you haven't yet shared
Mm-hmm.
that's something similar? It was a reminder for what was already within,
Mm-hmm.
and that just needed some dusting off or some furniture polish.
An example?
Yeah, something else along the way on your many
Oh yeah.
journeys.
Oh yeah. Okay. When I was a young boy, maybe 2 or 3, I I had this incredible fever, and my mother was at at her end, at her thread's end, and she was completely petrified. I was literally dying in my bed. She called the doctor to come over to assist me, and I literally flatlined and died for a couple of minutes. She grabbed my lifeless body and ran out in the street looking for someone to take me to the hospital. And it was a moment of realization. I can reflect on it right now, but like, as a parent, to witness that, to watch someone's spirit leave the body. And my mother still to this day recalls it as such a profound moment. And then, of course, that led into my even more clear near death when I was, 8 or 9, where I got hit directly by a car.
Hmm.
And that was a profound moment where I immediately left my body, flew around in the air, and observed the interaction of my mother running to my lifeless body on the side of the road. And for 40 minutes, I was just like Superman, witnessing all this as they took my body to the ambulance. They took attempting to resuscitate me with no avail. It was just flatline. And so there was no declaration of this person is dead on arrival, but it was quite clear, we're not getting this kid back. He's gone. And like, she's just in the ambulance sobbing. And finally, I'm just observing all this floating around, flying around the ambulance, flying in the air, just all the stuff that excited me as a child. I was just like, this is crazy. And it wasn't, this is the thing where many people ask me, it's like, well, did a big masculine voice come in and say, this is your soul contract, and you need at this point to make a decision. It looks like your time is up. It's ready for you to re-up into your next experience. That never happened for me. So I experienced this, and then the second they laid my lifeless body on a bed in the hospital, resuscitated, my spirit came right back in, and boom, it was like, and everyone's like, holy crap. And my mother was just, she was already at the end. She assumed that I was never coming back. And I mean, that was for the second time. It's if that answers your question, maybe, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a reality check, because the reality is what you create.
Let's do one more thing and just see who comes in. Only 11 above. It could be the woman who was your instructor back in Australia. I'm just going to put my hand up. You can use you as the whole hand. You can put a hand up. Feel a little vibe, and I'm going to put up Joy's photo, an angel named Joy. We did this before the show. I'm just going to leave her here for 1 second. We'll have some different ambassadors from your crew, my crew. It's all one big crew. Oxford, Cambridge, rowing up the Thames. Okay, here we go. I'm going to whoosh once or twice, and then we're going to pause and see what you get. And you may already have her coming in, Quan Yin coming in, but I'm going to blow a little as well. Microphone's down below today. And I don't know where this is coming from, but we don't know where it's going to go. And here it comes. Did you feel a little whoosh, big whoosh, couple adjectives, and then
Yeah, it was like a big whoosh of like lotus petals just circling around me, and then just falling right into my heart.
I love
And
that. And
that melting pot of magnetism.
Son, do you mind just closing us for a few seconds and see if that instructor comes in with Quan Yin and Joy if you want as ambassadors, or someone from those days in a beautiful way, a very uplifting, just, you got this right, kiddo, something like that. I'm doing Americanisms here, but we need you to do Australianisms. And at home, if you want a family member to come in or something, just love and above, an angel probably is the best way to go. Just put a hand on your heart, two hands if you want, or pause it back on Joy, ask her a question, listen, get a little whisper, catch flowers in the air. What will you allow for? Get a hug, 1 million ways to feel a hug. And comment, share, subscribe, like. What have you liked most so far that San has shared with us? Or you're shy, put an emoji down. It still counts as a comment. Okay, San, what did you get for something new and different coming in?
Just selflessness, return, true gratitude and appreciation for everything that is shared with me in this present moment. And this complete validation that there is no need for anything just now.
And I'll try to be punny. Sounds like a bell ringing or the unstruck bell out of India. Eswaran, I think, is the name of the author for that book. What would be a final reminder for everybody about just walking a smoother path? In a way, all steps are the same. It's letting go to be here. You have it all. Can you talk to us about this path that everybody points to, the gateless gate, the wayless way? The you've got a bunch of ways you say it, but it's getting out of up here to be what you already were, already are, and I think you would say what you will be in the future.
Well, you just start with realizing that your impatience, your need for control is the gateway to completely surrender and self-realization. That all the things that you meet within your life that seem impossible are beyond possible, and that entry level starts with your acceptance, your forgiveness, your love for you, and then that ripples out like kisses from a blossom into what would seem a warm heart and a hug from a dear friend, a family member, someone that needs that hopium to remember. And that, my dear friend, is the now moment.
And I'm going to put up one last angel photo. Charlotte, she just said the other day, I can remember this, patience is peace. And I feel like that's very akin to what you just said. So, well,
Beautiful.
Son, thank you very much for being a guest on the APL, the Angels Positivity and Love show. It's always wonderful to see you. And every time, need a seatbelt and a couple deep breaths. You always take us somewhere. So thank you for that. Really appreciate you being on the show.
I thank you for inviting me, my dear friend, and I love it when we create this union, when we dance and bathe in this unconditional love that we have for each other and all things. And that brotherhood, that effect will be very reminiscent for most people, because that's what is missing in their own experience, is that unconditional love and acceptance. And through this experience, through this conversation, you will find yourself. And if that's the only thing that transpires, then we know that this is where we need to be.
Yes. What you said. I like it. Son, thank you very much again, and look forward to having you on the show again, 2026, or maybe sooner. Take care.
Love it.